Welcome back, everybody. Once again, this is Marc Lawrence, and we're all set to go against the spread 2026 style. And with that, I'm going to welcome into the show our cast of experts, our co host, Andy Iskoe from TheLogicalApproach.com in Las Vegas. Andy, how was your New Year's this past week?
Well, it was nice and quiet. And as I told Greg before we started, I wish I was a drinker because if I had been, I would have been out drinking on New Year's Eve. It's overslept on New Year's Day and wouldn't have had to watch the Texas Tech Oregon game.
Yeah, just
That had nothing to do with bets. It just had to do with the aesthetics of the game.
yeah, and the fact that it was the most puzzling result that I can recall in a long, long time. They looked like they were
certainly the fact that Texas Tech couldn't even score.
They were in a coma. I mean, my goodness. I mean, perhaps arguably the most powerful offensive team in the nation, and they don't even score a point. They get 215 yards. That was really, really, to me, when you go back and look at all these bowl games, one of the most surprising results.
I think it also says a lot more about Oregon. Because remember, Oregon at least had been tested a few times. They had that loss to Indiana, had some losses. But that team's speed and their physicality, I think, surprised a lot of people.
I think it did too. I really do. Greg DePalma, Prime Sports Network, how was your New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, I should say?
Well, very nice. The two big long shots came through, Miami and Ole Miss. So that sets things up nicely. And I have it set up too that even if Indiana spoils the party, at least I can get some of my money back as far as the matchups. So I set that up nicely. But yeah,
what'd you get Indiana at? What price?
Well, I had the matchup with Indiana, and it was Indiana. Miami was, I think they were both about 20-1. If it was Indiana Miami beating Miami or Indiana beating Ole Miss, was about 20-25-1. And since I both have Miami and since they have both of them to win the championship, I felt let me hedge my bet with a couple of those, and one of them was Indiana, the other was Oregon. So it's like I'm going to make my money back, but obviously I want Miami or Ole Miss to win it all. That would be the big.
I actually took a look at what the odds were for Indiana before the season to win the national championship, and unless it was a misprint, and I got to check a couple of other sources, Indiana was 9,900 to 1.
Really?
I find that hard to believe, but I mean, look, they had a great year last year, but look who they were doing it in the Big Ten. You had Penn State.
You mean 99-1?
Top. No, not 99-1.
Yeah, I don't
99-0-0-0-0, which seemed
that's not right.
I'm gonna check another source because this was Circa that I looked at, and they had odds on everyone.
No, they were projected to be like 5th or 6th in the Big Ten.
Yeah, I found it hard to believe, but I couldn't find.
So that maybe 99-1, 100-1, maybe, right?
I would think so, and I checked it because usually 99-1 is 9900.
Yes,
but this had 4 zeros after it.
Yeah,
I'm guessing it had to be a misprint.
Well, that could have been 990-1, right?
Yeah, well, that would nobody's 900. Not even not even Kentucky would have been 990-1. So, but look, the fact is, though, unfortunately. For fans that are still like me, that still are not sure if Indiana is any better than, say, the teams that we're now going to see them go up against, they got a walkover. They were very fortunate that they played a team that didn't even deserve to be in the tournament. And just watching Alabama, I mean, what do they do? I mean, really, what was Alabama and Georgia both going for it on 4th down in their own territory early in the game? I mean, Georgia also went for it, if you don't recall, early in that game. And it's like, what? I don't understand this new wave of like, now we're going for it when it's 4th and 2 at our own 35. It's like, I don't understand it. I just don't get it. Especially Alabama's going to decide to do that. Well, you're going to throw the ball, right? Because you can't run. And what do? They decide to run the ball.
It doesn't make sense because you are risking. I mean, your own 35 is a little questionable only because you're probably still conceding a realistic field goal if you miss.
It was 3-0. They were still in the game. It was a game. And then
you do that in the fourth quarter when you're down by 2 scores and there's 3 minutes to go. That's when you do that.
All right, guys. I just looked up Indiana Hoosier. Oh no,
I saw 200 to 1 at another place.
Sorry, this is giving me basketball. Sorry about that.
Oh,
who, by the way, was 10,000 to 1. Okay.
Yeah. So I will say though that the defense once again looks like it's all around college football is going to determine the champion. That's why I think Ole Miss is going to be the interesting team because they don't really have a good defense, but they have a really explosive offense. Yeah. And Chambliss is playing incredible football. I hope he gets the extra year of eligibility that he's hoping for, because that would give him another year, and we'll see. And that should definitely improve his draft stock even more. But I guess this is the question I have. See, when everybody talks about how great Mendoza is, and again, I think Mendoza is a fine prospect, but tell me, have you seen Mendoza play anything the way Chambliss played yesterday? I haven't seen Mendoza play like that. That's what I want to see Mendoza play like for me to get all goo-goo and gaga that he's some sort of like electric number one can't miss prospect. But he's a good quarterback and he's played well. But Chambliss played like a man possessed,
and he did it against one of the top defenses in the nation that was on fire for the last 4 games that they played. That's what was extremely impressive about his performance.
What's impressive about Mendoza, Heisman Trophy aside, is the fact that almost every one of his passes are catchable.
Yeah,
he throws a very, very nice.
And he threw some nice ones off balance too that were right on target.
Yeah, that'll be a good matchup going up against that Oregon defense. So now that's what we're really gonna. Now it's a rematch, and I still think Indiana is the better team, but they got some good defensive players there on Oregon, and that'll be a good football game. And the Miami Ole Miss game should be really interesting because you got that Miami defense against that Ole Miss offense.
I think the performance of both Oregon and Indiana, of their two defenses, has been underappreciated because of all the explosiveness both teams have shown on offense all year.
So here's your odds, guys. According to FanDuel, it was reported in 2025 and also August 30th before the season opener that Indiana's odds to win the college football playoff national title were 10,000 to 1. A $100 bet would pay out $10,000 in profit. That's what Indiana.
That's isn't that well? That's close to the 9,900 then that I said.
Yes.
I don't know where this. We go over all the futures at the beginning of the season, and those numbers don't exist.
Well, the thing I just mentioned, I saw the Circa list. Now, I don't know, they sometimes didn't have the correct publication date on it, but in July, I just checked, the one that I have close at hand said 200 to 1, and then I checked one when it was revised in August at 10,000 to 1, and the only thing I can suggest, and it's hard to fathom, is that they must have had so much money, for example, on Ohio State or Penn State, both of whom were rated in the top 10, that they needed to draw some money on some other Big Ten teams to soften it. And maybe just felt that, Indiana was good, but maybe they were a one-team wonder. They were still going to be good, but that they couldn't see Indiana beating either perhaps Ohio State or Penn State in the Big Ten championship or during the regular season, although I don't think they played Ohio State in the regular season. They did play Oregon at Oregon, so maybe the odds maker said, now that we're getting all this money on Ohio State and Penn State, to a lesser extent Oregon, maybe we just have to jack up the numbers to get some people to bet Indiana, even though they thought it was an extreme long shot that they would be there. And of course they haven't won it yet, but 9,900 to 1 didn't make much sense when they were much lower than that earlier at 200 to 1, but that was back in July when you probably did not have a lot of futures activity happen at that time compared to what they were going to get over the 3 to 4 weeks leading up to the season.
I'll be sure to contact you guys in July then and say, give me a full list of odds to win the national championship in college football, because it's so crazy now that means that they want to give odds out like that for teams that are predicted to be fifth in their conference. And I'm willing to throw some money at some of these teams in the future because that's how the parity in college football now is going to be amazing.
Well, also the thing is, keep in mind, some of those favorites like Clemson, Penn State, Texas, those were short odds. I think a number of them were single digits or 10 to 1 or 12 to 1 or less. So that's those are like not odds on. But
do you think that's because it was at the casino?
I've seen a couple of sports books group these teams and say, will the national championship come from Group A, Group B, Group C, Group D, and they'll put 4 teams together. And even there, you don't see very long odds for any of the ones individually that they group in there.
Is there a big difference with the odds at the casino compared to the odds that you get at sports books? Because sports books are never giving you anything over 200 or 300 to 1 on any team that they put on the list. So is that the case?
Are you talking about online sports books? Because I don't follow that. I'm talking about regular walk-in sports books like
that's what I'm asking
here in Vegas.
So casinos are going to give you larger
odds.
No,
the Circa sports book that I mentioned, 9,900. Is a Circa. That's definitely a walk-in. That's one of the.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, the walk-in casinos. Those are going to give you much bigger odds than the sports books are. Okay.
Oh yeah, you do not get anywhere near good odds at like DraftKings and FanDuel.
And why is that though? Is that what's the reason?
I think I really don't know. Other than the fact that maybe they cater to a lot more. Of a less sophisticated audience than the people who live here in Vegas, because we've been doing it so long.
Okay.
I mean, that's just a guess. I have absolutely no concrete evidence to back that up. But there was a time, when you had, for example, the Minnesota Twins and the Atlanta Braves back in 1991, I think they were both 100 to 1, which were considered long shots. They started repricing a lot of them, and you don't have a lot of those large odds that you had. Now, of course, when you're talking about baseball, you're talking about 30 teams. When you're talking about college football, you're talking about 136 teams at the FBS level, of which probably maybe 15 to 20 of them, and maybe that might be even a little high, have realistic chances of winning the championship.
Well, guys, as most of our listeners and viewers know out there, obviously Jim Feist is not going to be joining us on the show today. He had other commitments. And normally we start the show with the NFL segments because that's what Jim is an expert at. And that's what Jim does. He really doesn't do college football. But since we've begun our conversation with college football, let's keep it right where it's at. We'll wrap things up with the NFL instead. So as we get into the college football what's left portion of the season here, and not many games are here, obviously, here's a quick review of what the conferences have done thus far in the college football bowl season. The ACC, 3-3 straight up, 2-4 against the spread. The ACC, 4-5 straight up and 3-6 against the spread. The Big 12, 2-2 straight up and 3-1 against the spread. Obviously, one of those 2 losses and the 1 spread loss was Texas Tech, which you talked about. Conference USA, 3-3, both sides, straight up and against the spread. The Mid-American Conference, 2-3 straight up, 3-2 to the spread. Mountain West goes 2-4 outright and 3-3 to the spread. The Southeast Conference, here's the real disappointing conference of all, 4-7 straight up and against the spread in bowl games this year. And the Sun Belt, 4-6 straight up and against the spread. So my question to you guys is this.
Did you mention the Big Ten?
Yes, the Big Ten 8-3 straight up, 7-4.
I broke out there for a second. I thought you were saving that for last because of its spectacular record compared to the other conferences.
No, I may have jumped over it, Andy. You could be right. But anyway, the Big Ten 8-3 straight up and 7-4 against the spread, which leaves us to the question of the 4 Power 4 conferences. The SEC's performed the worst. The Big Ten has performed the best. Is this a mark in the Big Ten's favor as far as superiority goes, or is it just college bowls only? Greg, what's your take on that?
Considering the Big Ten has won the last 2 national championships, I think it means that the Big Ten has taken over superiority in college football. It's just, look, we know that SEC in regular season is a better overall conference depth-wise. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Nobody's arguing that. I don't think anybody should. But if somebody's just saying, okay, best conference in college football right now, it's got to be the Big Ten.
I agree 100%. You can't refute their body of work this football season. And you bring in a great point that they've won 2 national championships in a row, and they're in the process of maybe winning a third.
That's right.
They got 2 entrants alive amongst
with
the 4
a third,
teams.
by the way, with a third different team.
Yes, and guaranteed a spot in the championship game on top of it. Andy, your take. What do you think? SEC, Big Ten.
My numbers still show the SEC overall as the better conference, largely due to the lack of the same kind of mediocrity of bad teams, I guess, than the Big Ten. Although you take a look, the Big Ten does have 18 teams versus 16 for the.
Well, what do you think, Andy? What do you think? Get the numbers out.
I think it's very close. I mean, look. You had of the final 8 teams. What do we have? 3 teams from the SEC: Alabama, Mississippi, and Georgia, and 2 of them had to play each other, so one of them is going to be eliminated.
So if it's very close, Andy, and you had to submit your ballot, who would it be?
I'd go SEC.
You would? Wow. Okay. Yeah. He's fighting the numbers. He's going to go SEC. Yeah. Talent.
My numbers. Are you talking about the bowl result numbers or?
Yeah. From the bowl result, adding to the overall makeup of the conferences, which one is the superior conference?
Well, I think it's hard to say because we still have a number of these teams still remaining. You got Oregon, you got Indiana, you got Ole Miss, you got who are the other ones that are still playing the other conferences? But certainly you can say that based upon what we've seen so far of the teams that have played their bowl games, the Big Ten certainly from a betting standpoint, the Big Ten's been making you money. The SEC is losing you money.
Another point: the SEC, 2 of their 4 wins have been against each other. They were paired together.
Yeah.
So it's sort of fortuitous.
So that'd be what 2 and 5, I guess, if you throw that out.
It would be 2 and 5 if you strip that out. Exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And one of the wins was Ole Miss beating up on Tulane.
Yeah.
And what was the other one?
Oklahoma.
I don't know, but you had Northwestern beating up on Central Michigan.
What was the other one?
Well, the SEC,
I'm saying as far as SEC. SEC had 4 wins.
Oklahoma, Alabama.
Yeah.
2 were versus their own conference.
Yes.
1 was versus Tulane. And what was the other one?
A&M Miami?
No, that was a loss. What was their other win?
Oh, you're talking about their other win? Texas and Michigan.
Texas, Michigan. There you go.
Which
the lame duck coaching staff. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't really all that impressive of a win. It was a win nonetheless, but with everything that was going on at Michigan, it would have been a stunning surprise had they lost. But
interestingly, the line did not move all that much. In fact, it actually came down in the Michigan-Texas game. I think that. Let me see. Did I have that correctly? The line went down to like 4 or something in that game.
It did.
The game closed.
I know the Miami game dropped like 2 points.
Yeah.
Before game time, the last line I saw was like 7.5.
That's a good point, Greg. We're seeing a lot of massive line movement in games on game day and an hour or 2 before the games. We saw that in the Texas Tech Oregon game yesterday.
We saw it the other way today with Rice opting out a lot of players. That line went up to 19.5. Texas State.
Yeah, what happened in that one? The Tech Oregon line?
The Oregon line went from Oregon -2 to Texas Tech -1.
Wow.
Yeah.
Or 1.5 at kickoff. Yes. Okay. Right. So that was a big swing, 3.5 points.
Yeah, the thing I'm sure the Texas Tech defenders are probably thinking about when they watch shows and they hear people analyze the game and say, man, Texas Tech, man, they just didn't come as advertised. Those guys on defense are probably saying, really? We didn't come as advertised? It's those guys on that side of the ball that didn't come as advertised.
You had a lot of people who played Oregon's team total over something like 26.5. That tells you how well Texas Tech played.
That defense, I know Miami's defense to me has been the best, but that Texas Tech defense might have been better. I mean, boy, were they good.
Well, I think you had the 2 best defenses locking horns there in Texas Tech and Indiana. Ohio State could make their case, but
Ohio State and Miami were pretty good matchup defensively.
Yes, they were. Texas Tech held 9 opponents to season-low point production in their football games,
and including BYU to 9 points twice.
Yes.
Yeah, they got 4 guys up front that are maybe even 5 that are going to be really good pros.
Yeah.
So, and even Miami, they've got the 3 guys that are going to be pros, Messidor, Moten, and Bain. I mean, they just ate up Ohio State's offensive line, especially early in the game. Yeah. And that's what we've been seeing. That's what we talked about last week. It's the defenses are controlling this tournament. And I don't think that's going to change.
What's more impressive to you, Greg? The fact that Miami upset Ohio State or the fact that Ohio State never led in the game?
Probably that Ohio State never led.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I would have thought that, and I expected them to come back in the second half. Of course, that was going to happen.
Yeah.
But I didn't expect Ohio State to have the ball at midfield with 10 minutes to go in the game with a chance to win. That I was really surprised about how quickly that turned. And Ohio State really just woke up. Really, I mean, it did a great job.
Were they ever tied after 0-0? Because I remember it was 14-0. I want to say it was 14-7, then 21-7.
Yeah, it was 17-14 Miami.
17-14, okay.
Yeah, and then Miami had Ohio State had the ball. They couldn't get that first down. I think they even got sacked on that play, and then Miami got the ball back, and that was it.
Got the last score of the game. Yeah, last score of the game.
What did you think about? Did you think that was the right way to go with Ryan Day? I understood why he did it. The whole idea of letting the guy score. So there's 55 seconds left. You're down 3. You have no timeouts left. So I guess it's you let this team score, and you see what happened. You get down 10. You got to score twice, and you got to get the onside kick also. As opposed to, what do you think? There's probably about 20 seconds left, and you still have a play where you might be able to get a turnover. Maybe they missed a field goal. You never know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a tough call. I don't know what you guys.
I guess the thought is that you need, that you need to have the ball back, and there's nothing that says you might get the ball back. Now, of course, the difference is if they stop them, you're only down by the 3 points as opposed to the 10 points. But I probably would not have let them score, because for what you've basically said, look, they got a good defense. No reason why they could not create a turnover, and all they need would be a field goal to tie.
Shot to do that, yeah. And again, you never know.
But would the other side of the equation is, would Miami have just sat on the ball? I mean, just not even permitted a turnover. Just
where were they on the field when they scored? Where was the line of scrimmage? On the 5-yard line?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying, because I couldn't remember where it was at the time left, but I guess the thought was that they were going to score. I won't say it was inevitable they were going to score, but on the 5-yard line, maybe the thought was, okay, if we hold them, we get the ball back. We still need a field goal, but we got 70 yards to go before we get the field goal attempt, and maybe there's not enough time. Let them score. We'll take our chance that we can get the kickback, run back maybe to, let's say, the 40-yard line. We'll need 30 yards. We can get the field goal, and then we try the onside kick. Maybe
even if you're down 6, I mean, you could get the ball in play for a Hail Mary, which again might even be a better statistical chance than what they had to have gone through. So again, it's a very tough call. But either way, I know there are already Ohio State fans already pissed off at Ryan Day again.
The other thing to consider is you hadn't really scored a lot, and now you're down by 10 points with so little time, and I think no timeouts left, and you couldn't really do much against the Miami defense all game. Now you're going to score 10 points in 2 minutes with no.
Yeah, I really think it was rather classless.
But I guess the thought is we can't score if we don't have the football.
You have to have the football to score, right?
Yeah.
I thought it was rather classless on Dan Lanning's part to not kneel on the ball on 4th down. He kneels on the ball on the 1-yard line with 4th down. So the clock stops at 4 or 5 seconds to go in the game. Where are they going 4 or 5 seconds down 2 scores?
Yeah,
I don't know. These coaches, when they
I had the mute on, but when I turned it on, the last part I caught was something. Maybe that's something that upset Oregon. Made them mad, and I didn't hear what it was before then. So maybe there was more to it than just bad sportsmanship.
I don't know, but it wasn't a good look. That's all I can say.
No.
And then with the Ole Miss game, how things turned so quickly because Georgia's got the ball. It's 21-12. They have the ball inside Ole Miss territory. And you just figured at that point, we've seen this story before.
That's where they break it open.
Yeah, Georgia's about to go down, score again, maybe a touchdown. The game's going to be over. And it's about, a half hour in real time later, Ole Miss has a 10-point lead. It's like, what? How did that happen? But that's why you got to give Ole Miss credit, because even though their defense isn't very good, they made key stops when they needed to make them. So it wasn't like they gave up scores on every single drive. They did make stops.
The thing that got me really in love with Ole Miss in this game was with all the chaos that they faced with the Lane Kiffin situation heading into their first-round game against Tulane, a team that they could have taken lightly because they blew them out earlier in the year. they took charge early in that game and basically said, no, we're not distracted. We think we can win a national championship. They probably have had and continue to have the chip on their shoulder because of what Lane Kiffin did to them. But I often look at teams, and Mark and Greg, you may be the same way. I know Mark in the past has been. You don't look at loss. I do look at losses and the quality of losses, etc. But I look at how do teams respond after losses, or in bad situations, such as Mississippi was in that situation. That effort against Tulane, even though they were stepping up in class, told me a lot about the fact that they were able to get that team to focus despite everything. And then you figure about also the fact that they were going against a team that they had confidence in because they were so close in that first meeting before Georgia outscored them 17-0 in the fourth quarter.
Well, next year, just mark this down because this is something we'll talk about.
September 23rd is the date?
No, what I'm saying is next year, when you look forward to going through handicapping, the easy one that everybody's going to talk about is going to be that the
LSU Mississippi
4 teams with the byes in both playoffs are now 1-7 straight up.
Yeah.
And that's something also that you have to consider, that with the bye, not only are you now losing these games, but you don't get the first round game at home, which is a big revenue splash for your community and for your home team. So you don't get the home game, and then you're in a neutral site stadium and you're losing. So that's something that I do wonder whether or not some of these something might happen there. And then the other thing that may not be talked about as much, but this is something that we have to keep in mind is that look at how tough it was for all 4 teams with a bye in the first quarter.
Yep.
I don't even think there was a touchdown by any of the teams with a bye, meaning next year, first quarter wagering, you've got to go with the teams that played in the first round.
Keep in mind that unless you played in a conference championship game, you last played the end of November. Like I think November 29th was the last regular Saturday of the season. So you've been off for 3 weeks of rust because you played on the 19th and 20th of December for those first opening round, those first 4 games. If you played in a championship game, you still were off 2 weeks, playing on December 6th and then be playing on the 19th or the 20th. So teams like Georgia played, no, not Georgia, Alabama. No, Alabama didn't play in a championship game. No, they did. Yeah, Alabama and Georgia played. So they had a little bit of different time. Of Alabama played in 2 weeks. A 1 week bye during the regular season is the standard. I don't know if too many teams that I can recall ever had 2 weeks off in the middle of the season, meaning you sat out, you didn't play for 21 days. Okay. Yeah. Now you have it for a good number of those teams of the first 12, who didn't, the 4 teams who get byes pretty much go that.
And it's not like they're playing bad teams. They're playing good, respectable teams.
Exactly.
So they've got the work. The only team that got the doors blown out, Alabama, again, probably shouldn't have been there. Yeah. They even only were down 3-0 at the end of the first quarter.
Well, Tulane also.
I'm talking about in the bye.
Second round, yeah. But, I'm just thinking that may be another thing that the committee looks at. In addition to, do we want 2 group of 5 teams in there? Maybe they've had a couple of years of success and they've seen this trend about those teams. Maybe the situation will be they ultimately say, okay, we can eliminate that by having a 16-team playoff and nobody gets byes.
Yeah. That would definitely, again, I'd be interested to see how the coaches feel about that. Do they?
And those 8 teams and the top 8 seeds 1 through 8 get home games in that first round.
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, you like the rest, but still, do you need 3 weeks of rest? I mean, that's a little overkill. 2 weeks of rest, I think, is more than enough. These kids are 18 to 21 years old. I mean, they can handle it. And again, let's keep in mind that if Miami does win, they will be playing at home in the national championship game.
Yeah, that's right.
So that is going to be something to keep an eye on.
How interesting would it be if Miami played at home in the national championship and the 49ers played at home in the Super Bowl? Yeah.
That'd be really
and then we could have Miami Hurricanes play the San Francisco 49ers.
Well, play the Miami Hurricanes, San Francisco 49ers parlay then.
Yeah.
See how that works out for you.
So, guys, what are we going to do with Miami here now? They're the first team in college football playoff history to win back-to-back games as underdogs. Now they're going to dress up as a favorite this week. Are they for real? or are they dissing Ole Miss in this football game? That's a question I have to ask you. Andy, what do you think?
Well, you take a look at Miami again. One of the criticisms I had about Miami, though I do think they deserve to be in there, is that they had that game against Bethune-Cookman that some of these other teams did not have, so they got to pad their stats and have an easy win. But they did play Notre Dame early in the season in the first week, so they did step up in class. But were they really tested in the in the ACC this year? Who was the next best team that Miami played? Was it the teams that they lost to in
maybe
the ACC?
Maybe
Louisville or SMU, maybe. Florida State
and they
was
lost
nothing.
to both of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And you compare Ole Miss to, look, they gave Georgia a good game down in Athens, and then they gave Georgia, obviously, the win last night. Yeah, and maybe it may be exactly what Greg said. If you take a look, at the two best units on the field, it's probably the Mississippi offense and the Miami defense. But then what's the third and fourth best? Maybe you rank the Mississippi defense versus the Miami offense.
Which is an edge for Miami because Ole Miss just doesn't have that good of a defense. And at least with Miami, you've got a veteran quarterback that played great and has played really well in these first
would have, by the way, been
games.
Interesting to see if it had been Miami against Georgia, Carson Beck going up against his former team.
And I'm sure he prefers it this way, where he can just say, hey, where are you guys? I'm here, you're not. But I think it also depends. I guess the question then would be, Mark, if you didn't put money on Miami, like we advised a couple of weeks ago with the big numbers that they were getting to win the championship, I still think they're the way to go because I'm not looking at Miami. If I was looking at this Miami team after they lost to SMU, that's a different Miami team. This has been a much better Miami team, especially on defense. Their defense has been phenomenal since that loss to SMU. And it wasn't just because they were playing ACC teams. Their defense, as we saw against Ohio State, against one of the best teams in the country, was suffocating.
Texas A&M.
And Texas A&M.
Despite the weather conditions that both teams played under.
On the road.
Well. So the three best teams Miami played this year were Notre Dame, Ohio State, Texas A&M. Who are the best three teams that Mississippi played to? I guess you could say Georgia twice.
Georgia twice out in Oklahoma.
Yeah. So
they made the playoff,
Yeah.
But you got a hot quarterback in Chambliss who's going to be tough to stop. I think they're just hotter right now than even Ohio State's offense. See, the Ohio State offense, a lot of Ohio State fans are very critical of Ryan Day because they just think he's just a little bit too conservative at times. Look, I don't agree with that. I think Ohio State fans are just very spoiled, and they just can't be satisfied. But I think what really mattered more than anything was that Ohio State, one thing Ryan Day has not done, and this is definitely, I think, a knock on him, is if you look at it, they have not recruited an offensive line capable of being dominant since he's been there.
Against elite teams.
Yeah, since he's been there. I mean, you look at the Ohio State offensive line, they've had some good players that have come out of the draft, but for the most part, all the players coming out of the draft for Ohio State are on defense or quarterback, wide receiver, running back, skill position. It's not the offensive line. And that's where Miami dominated against Ohio State. Now, Ole Miss, they're an all right offensive line, but that Georgia defense is not going to be what I mean.
Miami defense.
Miami defense. They haven't seen that defense all year, and I'm not sure anybody's seen that defense all year. Again, they're playing as good as anybody, and I think better than anybody. I think they're the best defense right now left out of the four, and so that's why I think it's up once again to Carson Beck on offense. And if he can continue to play like that, I think Miami's going to just be way too tough.
You think Miami's defense is better than Indiana's, Greg?
Oh, absolutely. Right now, I do. Yes,
I would.
Because you got to remember the two top pass rushers for Indiana are out. You just can't take those guys out. And I don't care about Alabama. Alabama means nothing. Alabama shouldn't have been there. That's just, I don't care if they would have won 60-0. That's just, no, that doesn't mean anything.
Mark, I was going to ask you, is Mississippi, and you could say the same thing for Indiana, are Mississippi and Indiana both teams of destiny this year?
Well, they appear to look that way.
Certainly Ole Miss is.
Yes. Ole Miss looks to be a team of destiny.
Remember, they only had that one loss all season. People don't, because they get overshadowed by so many of these other teams that we're used to seeing
team
there.
They just avenged it. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, they got some nice weapons at receiver too. Chambliss is throwing those balls, but somebody's got to catch it. And Lacey's in a good running back, so they're loaded on offense.
Well, here's what's interesting, guys. Both of these teams are streaking right now. You're looking at Miami with 7 wins in a row, Ole Miss with 8. Ole Miss has scored 30 or more points 8 straight games in a row. 12 of their 14, they've got 30 or more points.
Twice of them against Georgia.
Yes. Miami has not allowed more than 24 points to anybody this year. So obviously, we're talking, offense against defense in this football game. What's going to prevail here is the defense with a lightweight offense. And I'm going to call Miami of Florida's offense lightweight. I mean, I know they put what they've done in the playoffs. They've scored 10 and they scored 24. That's not going to win many playoff games moving forward. But what wins out here? This Ole Miss offense that can't be stopped, or this Miami defense who won't let teams put up points in the scoreboard. This is going to be a classic hitters versus pitchers matchup as far as the college bowls are concerned, I feel.
Oregon, Indiana is going to be the same thing, except that you have 2 great defenses and 2 great offenses going up against each other.
Yep. I just think people would have really, for their money, they would have rather seen Indiana playing Oregon in the championship game. Arguably the 2 best teams that are left.
Well, I don't know about Oregon yet. I want to see. I'm not sure about Oregon yet. We'll find out when they play Indiana. And I only say that because looking at their offense against Texas Tech, let's just be real. They didn't do anything. The only reason that they scored points is because of the turnovers. Yeah. And look at how much time they had on the field.
Why they didn't do anything, Greg? It's because Texas Tech's defense is hellacious. Okay?
No, I'm sure. Yeah, but again,
number one in the country against the run.
But I also think Indiana, Miami's defenses are on par. As much as I think Texas Tech is the best, I don't think there's a whole huge difference between Miami and Indiana's defense and Texas Tech. And that's why Oregon's offense, I was a little bit surprised that they didn't move the ball a little bit better on offense. That surprised me.
One of the knocks against Texas Tech and their defense, as great as it is, that were they really tested by high-powered offenses this year? BYU was nice, but I don't think you would consider them an offensive threat. Now, Oregon was known for its offense, and yet they couldn't get it going against Texas Tech. Does that somehow deflate Oregon's offense, or rather, I should say, does it actually legitimize how good Texas Tech defense was because they held Oregon down? And might that be a factor in the next game for Oregon against Indiana, facing another tenacious defense? Of course, Oregon and Indiana already played this year.
Well, the other thing that jumps out in this Oregon-Indiana game to me is when Indiana beat Oregon earlier this year, they were a 7-point dog. Now they're playing them back on a neutral field as a 4-point favorite. That's quite a swing in the line of an adjustment.
There's not a lot of instances, Mark, but you probably have that information about postseason rematches. I mean, we had Alabama, Georgia. We saw the opposite result there. We saw the opposite result in Georgia, Ole Miss. But it's not that often that you get to see a rematch in a postseason game other than a tournament like this, because usually they don't put conferences together.
I'm going to say this, Andy, and I know at a point it was, and I don't recall over the last week or so, but in same season revenge games, in bowl games or playoff games, if it involved 2 conference teams, the conference team that lost the first won the second. And I'm talking straight up in against the spread.
By a dramatic number. That's what you're saying. Okay.
Yes. So, hence that pendulum then switches to Indiana in this football game.
Yeah.
If that in true same season revenge in a
you mean against Indiana
matters, right?
Against Indiana, yeah.
So that would favor Oregon
plus the points. And keep in mind, when people are looking at this, and the number looks a decent number. I forget if it opened at 4. It may have opened at 3.5. But the point is, if you looked at the way these 2 teams won, Indiana was much more impressive in its win over Alabama than Oregon was in its win over Texas Tech. So the public will say, look at how good Indiana looked against mighty Alabama. And Oregon beat a Texas Tech team that had really very limited postseason experience at this level.
The strange thing, guys, is I reached out to sportsreference.com, which is a great statistical site. I mean, and you can ask questions of them. I buy their service and I'm a member over there. And
Very reasonably priced too, by the way.
Yes. And I wanted to see when, if ever, did Alabama lose the yards in 4 consecutive football games in a row, which is how they closed out the season here this year. And they could not give me an answer. First of all, their stuff only goes back to 1985.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, and it hadn't happened. I go to 1980, and it hasn't happened. So it would have had to have happened before Alabama was relevant.
You checked your own status, your own database as well.
Yes,
and found that it didn't go back till at least 1980.
Yeah, but I wanted to go further, and I thought that's what Sports Reference would do for me, but they couldn't. Their stuff was only to 1980.
The thing that's interesting, by the way, is that Alabama has not been Alabama. There was a stretch where Alabama was not a very good team. I mean, they were still a good team, but look, they had, I think they had, 5-6 or 5-7 seasons or whatever for a while. And when you're having that kind of season, it would be reasonable to think that you could very well have been outgained in 4 straight games when you're not going 9-3 every year.
Well, I think where I'm going to with this is I have to have this gut feeling inside of me, and I don't think it's right. I don't think it's correct or proper. But I have a feeling that the geniuses that run the program, the school at Alabama, are not at all satisfied with Kalen DeBoer. And
I agree with that.
What I'm alluding to, Andy, is there's 4 straight games in a row they were out-yarded. They're supposed to be a good football team. They got out-yarded 3 games earlier this football season as well.
Did they end up 9-4 last year? And I think they're 9-4 this year now with their season over.
But those numbers aren't good enough for what they're paying him, or what they brought him in there for, to replace Nick Saban.
It's hard to replace a legend, and unfortunately, we are seeing it. Now, by the way, most schools would kill for 9-4 records back-to-back, but not Alabama,
talking about
not
an extension,
Ohio State.
Though.
Yeah,
that's the crazy part, is that he's not going anywhere now.
Yeah.
So why would you talk about an extension now when you know he's not going anywhere? There's no job openings. So if they give him an extension now, then that's going to tell you your answer right there, that they like him.
I think they give him a pink slip before they gave him an extension. I really do.
Yeah.
Well, the 2 jobs that he was being mentioned for were Penn State and Michigan, and both of those have been filled.
Right. So,
I wouldn't give him an extension either.
Got it is if either of those 2 schools were still open and they were coming really strong at him and they wanted to retain him, that would be the only reason they would extend him.
How much of a negative has it been? This was only his 2nd recruiting class. Did part of it, have to do with maybe Nick Saban got out because maybe he realized his last couple of recruiting classes were not up to traditional Alabama standards, and maybe part of that also? Yeah, NIL, the other thing as far as
that's what it was.
Nick Saban did not want to deal with the NIL, and I totally understand that. It's not the same. First of all, he's like 70 years old, and it's not the same as when you're 45 years old or 50 years old and you're going out to make a name for yourself at a program like Alabama. And he only had almost 20 years of outstanding success with all the national championships. DeBoer, the hire, I think, was understood because of what he did, but he only did it for 2 years at Washington.
Yeah, he dominated at an FCS level, but it was only 2 years. You're right, Andy. There wasn't a sustained amount of time of success that he's ever accrued
in the last 3 years.
And by the way, then you take a look at what Alabama takes a look at. Look what Cignetti did in 2 years, taking over a program that was not at the level of an Alabama.
And again, that was all NIL.
Yeah,
that's it. Indiana is not here without NIL. They don't even come close. NIL is the whole reason Indiana is in the position they're in. And that's the thing that, DeBoer took Washington to the national championship game, leaves 2 years later, goes to the SEC championship game. I mean, that's good coaching. Does he deserve more time? Absolutely. But I think the question we just talked about is, does he deserve an extension? No. I think he deserves 1 more year. Because if he can't handle NIL at Alabama, then why would you want this guy around? And he's not. You got to get
at least 1 more year, no more than 2. Let him get 95% of the roster of his recruits and NIL people.
And trust me, you just check out, if you want maybe a fun thing to do, if you just want to find out how Alabama fans are thinking, just check out the local radio stations and the airwaves at Alabama and see what's cooking. Because there's a lot of Alabama fans that are
Like Philadelphia Eagle
are
fans.
just not happy.
Like Ohio State fans last year after they won the national title. Well, like Ohio State fans last year after the national title, but you couldn't beat Michigan.
Right.
Well, again, that's what I'm saying. There are some fan bases, Ohio State and Alabama are definitely at the top, that are very spoiled.
The other part of this whole thing that our conversation is Andy mentioned about recruiting. Well, I think recruiting is in the past tense, with the NIL being what it is today. It doesn't matter how well you recruit. You can do a whole lot better by buying people and buying the right people, because you're buying seasoned players that can play, as opposed to rolling the dice with the kids out of high school that you really truly don't know about. And
lower tier FCS teams will go lower tier FBS teams will go after the best players at the FCS level, and the higher tier FBS teams will go for the best teams at the lower FBS level. You'll go from North Dakota State to Toledo. You go from Toledo to Michigan or Michigan State.
Exactly right.
And we're seeing the same thing with the coaches. There's been a lot of coaches, successful FCS coaches that have been getting jobs now, and they've proven themselves already in the FBS with their positions. I mean, Jimmy Rogers, who got the head coaching job at Iowa State, replacing Matt Campbell. I think he was at North Dakota State, South Dakota State, one of the two. Had like a 27-2 record, won a couple of national championships, goes to Washington State for 1 year. And look what he did this year when we talked about the near wins against three excellent programs, including Mississippi. And now he gets the Iowa State job. So these guys deserve a chance, and they're taking advantage of it. But again, I think it's important to know that nowadays it's not just about recruiting or being a great X's and O's coach. You have to have not just the money, but you have to have the infrastructure, the general manager, the people who know exactly how to recruit in the transfer.
Whoever heard 5 years ago of a general manager running an athletic program?
The first time I heard of it was when Bill Belichick hired a general manager.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and I think who's Ron Rivera, I think, is there at Cal, and
that's right.
Who is it? Is it Drew Luck at Stanford?
Luck was the coach, and I'm not sure who the GM is at Stanford, to tell you the truth. But everybody's got to have a general manager now.
Yeah. I think I mentioned it last week. If you just follow the natural evolution of college football over the 160 years or whatever that it's been around, I guess it was 155 or 156. I said it last week, and I'll say it again. 5-10 years from now, these major universities, first of all, may build that super conference that we've been talking about with like 64 teams and 4 16-team divisions. You're going to end up hiring out players because of the money involved, and students will you'll no longer have the student athlete. Student will go to school and be an Ohio State alumnus, and the other will be playing for the Ohio State Football Incorporated, be hired from the outside. They don't have to go to classes.
Count yourself lucky, Andy, that we're old enough that will probably be dead by the time that happens, because I don't think we want to see any of that.
No, but it might not be that long. You have a better chance than Mark and I do, but I don't know that it'll take 25 years.
Yeah, but how many more railroad crossings do you live near, Greg, than I do, as far as dying early?
Okay, that's true.
Yeah, right.
And the other thing that we're forgetting about this Indiana-Oregon game, which is going to be the big deal that everybody's going to talk about, is you've got the two quarterbacks, Mendoza and Dante Moore. And this is, look, Dante Moore so far did not necessarily pass the test against Texas Tech, but he gets another chance against Indiana, and he's going to get a real serious opportunity here, because at this point it looks like he's probably coming back, because he's going to make a lot of money either way. But if he has a really good game against Indiana, maybe he decides to come out, and that changes everything.
Pick, Greg? Is he the number one pick?
No, Mendoza is still the number one pick. But all of a sudden, because the way the teams are jockeying now, you got the Raiders 1. Unless the Raiders screw this up and beat the Chiefs on Sunday and open up the opportunity for them to not get the pick, then the Raiders are going to get Mendoza. So then the question is, right now, a team like the Jets or Cleveland is going, well, looks like we're not going to get our guy unless they want Simpson, which, I mean, I don't know why you want to go down that road unless, you're going to draft him like pick number 7 or 10. But let's say now Dante Moore comes out.
Yeah,
that changes everything.
Where does he rank amongst
Dante Moore will rank? He'll be the 2nd or 3rd pick. So he'll be the second quarter. So in other words, if the Jets are third or the Browns are third, they'll pick Dante Moore. That's most likely what would happen. So that's why it's a big. But again, we have to see if Dante Moore can pass the test. Because like I said, you can't look at the game he had against Texas Tech and go, oh, all right, I want that guy with the third pick in the draft. He didn't prove anything in that game. I'm not saying he did anything wrong. It's just that he didn't have. I mean, compare him to the game that Chambliss had. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
So, all right, guys, let's make the switch if we can here over to the National Football League side of things. We have no Jim Feist with us, but we are prepared to share information with you that we know that you didn't know before you tuned into the show. I want to remind everybody out there that's watching, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, ring the bell, go to the membership page and join us for wholesale prices on some fantastic picks and selections from Jim, Greg, Andy, and myself on the member page here as well. Do all that. You'll be happy and we'll be happy. Appreciate that. All right, guys, National Football League, this is it. Final week of the football season here. Probably for me, in truth, I think it's one of the most difficult. You can call it that, but from a handicapping perspective, I think it's one of the most difficult times to ferret through everything, largely because we don't know who's playing and who's not. Can't read the coaches' minds. We don't know.
And who's trying and who's not.
Yeah, exactly right. So what I find to do the most myself is I focus in on the teams that I know are going to be playing the players, and I'll evaluate that team against another team that is also playing the players, so we can put like against like and take it from there and go that way, rather than speculate about the Buffalo Bills, rather than speculate. We know already about the Chargers aren't playing people. So to me, you have to be very, very careful, but you have to do your homework when it comes to handicapping this card, as it is coming up on this card this week. Your thoughts, Andy, as we get into the National Football League playoffs. Are you surprised that there are only really 2 spots open, one in the NFC, one in the AFC, for a spot in the playoffs?
That's one of the things I find interesting, in addition to the fact that the number 1 seeds in both conferences have not yet been determined. One will be determined by head-to-head matchup. Although I wonder, I don't know what happens if Seattle and San Francisco end up in a tie. There's, I guess San Francisco would get it. Well, Seattle does, even though San Francisco will. They'd be one loss difference. Yeah.
Yeah, Seattle. No, San Francisco will get it, Greg. If they tie, Francisco wins.
No, Seattle has one more.
Seattle has one more win, but if they tie, Frisco holds the tiebreaker.
No, but Seattle has one more win.
Yeah, but if
the game is tied, they'd still have one more win. No, but Seattle would end up with still one more win because the tie would equal for both teams. So yeah. So Seattle would win because of 3 losses. But the fact that neither seed has been determined, it will be determined, and let's leave the tie out of it. By the way, I would like to see if it's a situation like that, they just keep playing. Not like a playoff game should, like they do in playoff games, because it's that important. But they won't. Yeah,
Pittsburgh's in the same boat. Pittsburgh also just needs a tie. So if these games do go to overtime, Pittsburgh and Seattle ties.
If they end in a tie,
help.
So San Francisco and Seattle will determine that, and of course, Denver controls its fate in the AFC. They just need to beat the Chargers, or would need New England to lose. And I think if both Denver and New England lose, and Jacksonville wins against Tennessee, and they're huge favorites, Jacksonville would get the number 1 seed, and what a surprise that would be, considering where things were, say, back after week 6 or 7. So that's the interesting thing. But as far as the head-to-head, the Carolina Tampa Bay itself has a switch, because if Tampa Bay wins and Atlanta beats New Orleans, I believe Carolina gets the division title based upon a 3-way tiebreaker between 3, 8, and 9 teams, as opposed to Pittsburgh and Baltimore, where the winner of that game is going to end up advancing into the playoffs as the number 4 seed, which kind of makes the race for the number 5 seed in the AFC interesting, because I think that you'd much rather play at Pittsburgh or Baltimore, certainly at Pittsburgh, than you would having to go up against, Jacksonville, I guess, because of their inexperience, but certainly going up against New England as the number 5 seed would do. You'd rather be the number 7 seed.
So then, I don't know if we agreed upon this or not, but if Frisco does beat Seattle, they do win the number 1 seed in the NFC.
Yes.
Frisco does,
yes.
If they win.
Yes.
They'd be 13-3-1, and I believe San Francisco would be 12-4-1.
No, they both have the same record.
No,
San
there's no
Francisco
tie
had
for
the
Frisco. It's just
tiebreaker
they
by
would have
beating them
equal-
twice.
Same records, but Frisco.
Oh
would
yeah,
hold
yeah.
the
If San
tiebreaker.
Francisco wins, I was saying if it ended up in a tie, that's what would
Right.
happen. Yeah.
Yeah. So with that in mind, let me do a quick little run here before we start breaking this card down here. As I just mentioned, the winner of the Frisco, San Francisco, Seattle game is the number 1 seed in that conference.
Yep.
In the AFC, the battle between the Broncos and the Patriots are for the number 1 seed. All Denver has to do is win, and they're in.
Right. Well,
If
yeah,
they lose-
Broncos beat the Chargers. They're in.
Yes. If
They
lose-
have a 1-game lead over the Patriots.
Yes, and then it would be New England if Denver loses and New England wins. That would be the case there. Also, I want to remind listeners out there about how the teams are coming into this year's games. And this all comes from my midweek alert newsletter here. We talked before in the past about.
But by the way, Mark, as you continue, I think I have a question from what you're about to say, which is actually I think will surprise many people.
Okay, well, give me the question because I'm not quite sure what I'm going to say.
I thought you were going to talk about the 5 teams who are top 10.
Oh, okay. Well, yes, I'll do that. Okay.
And I'll have a question for you.
All right.
Very interesting.
Last week, there were only 2 teams that ranked in the top 10, both offensively and defensively in the NFL. This week, there are 5 of them. I don't know. The other 3 just sprung up out of nowhere. No, they were just knocking on the door. The 5 teams are Buffalo, a little bit of a surprise defensively, Denver, Green Bay, New England, and Seattle. Tennessee, obviously, still the worst team in the stats, only 1-15 in the stats this year against other teams in all of their football games this year. What was your question, Andy, you wanted to ask of me?
I think this will surprise most people that Buffalo, no, that's not a surprise that they are number 5 in total offense, top 10. I think what people will be surprised about is against the rush, they are number 29. Yet they're still top 10 in defense, and that's because of the fact that they're number 1 against the pass.
That's exactly right.
They actually allow 140 yards on the ground and 163 yards through the air. So teams can run against them because they can't pass against them, or some would say you don't need to pass against them because you run against them. But if so,
that's what I think it is.
I think that's part of it, but it's still a surprise.
Because running, if you can't stop a team if you can't stop a team against the run, well, you're going to run, so you don't need to pass.
Well,
so
you still will need some big plays. If it's 3rd and 7, you're passing even against a bad defense. And by the way, when you take a look at the yards per rush that they allow, the league average is 4.4. Buffalo is at 5.0, which is not it's close to the bottom, but still, if you're 3rd and 7, you're probably going to be passing. So they are.
Well, this is why I texted you, Mark, and Jim earlier this week, because I knew Buffalo had such a bad rush defense, and I wanted to find out if you had any information at all, statistically speaking, that said, like, what was the worst? Like, has any team won a Super Bowl with a rush defense worse than top 25 or top 20, something like that? So that would be interesting to find out.
My answer to that is going to be no, but I'll find that out.
Yeah, because I don't know what that level is. Like, what's that mark? Is it, the worst 20, 18, 25? What is it? What's the worst rushing defense for a Super Bowl champion? Because it wouldn't make any sense at all. You would think for a Super Bowl champion to be able to win a Super Bowl with a really bad rushing defense. Unless, of course, they had so many other things going for them.
Well, by the way, the thing about Buffalo is, I like to break these statistics down by first half, second half of the season, and also by quarters, games 1 through 4, 5 through 8, etc. That's not good news for Buffalo. They allowed 141 yards per game on the ground in games 1 through 8, and 139 yards per game on the ground in games 9 through 16. So it's not like they showed an improvement, and all their problems were early in the season. It's been pretty steady.
Yeah, because, again, you got to remember, early in the season, they had the key injuries on defense, including Matt Milano. But then later in the season, they lose Oliver, who's their best run defender in the middle as well. So they've had some big injuries, rush defense-wise. I will say this, that anybody that is thinking about and again, I just wanted to know this statistically. This was my question with Buffalo. Not that I was going to go, okay, well, if they're 29th and the record is 20th, then I'm eliminating Buffalo from winning the Super Bowl. I wouldn't do that. And the reason why I wouldn't is because all you have to do is take a look at a team like the New York Giants. I forget what year it was. I think it was their second Coughlin Super Bowl. I think that was the team that I think they had more points against than points for that season. That's how bad that Super Bowl team was. That was the team that got hot in the playoffs with Eli Manning and beat the Patriots in that Super Bowl by some ugly score. I forget what it was. And so anything is possible. You can have, you can just have a year in a Super Bowl where things just go your way and you just get hot, and it can happen. So anytime anybody wants to say, well, you can't win a Super Bowl because of this, that, the other thing, just all you have to do is point to a team like the New York Giants that year to say anything is possible.
I will point out two things about Buffalo as far as their defense goes. And it's being selective here, but in their last 5 games, they held Pittsburgh to 166 total yards, of which 58 were on the ground. They held Philadelphia in their last game at home to 190 total yards, of which 82 were on the ground. So, depending upon the opponent that they face, they might have some ability, and we would think that they would outscore them. Maybe one of the most surprising things last week is that the Buffalo Bills gave up 13 points and didn't come close to winning. I mean, and that they scored 13 points and didn't win the game, or 12 points and didn't win the game.
Well, they gave up 13 points and didn't win the game.
Yeah, they scored 12.
I think what was the most surprising thing about that game was Josh Allen's incomplete pass.
Worst pass of his career, I would argue.
Yeah, probably. It's like, whoa, wait a second. Where'd that come from? It does have to make you wonder a little bit, because, again, there's going to be a lot of pressure on Josh Allen in this playoff when there's no Mahomes. There's no Burrow, and I don't think he has to worry about Lamar Jackson. So even if he's in the playoffs. So the pressure's on.
Yeah.
Well, guys, for the record, there's been one team in the Super Bowl that has won the Super Bowl with the worst rush defense in the National Football League.
Ooh, the worst.
The worst. Not only bad, but
wow.
But the worst. And they allowed 173 yards a game rushing.
Oh,
what
year was that?
That was 2006, the Indianapolis Colts.
Okay.
Wow.
When they won the Super Bowl, they beat the Bears 29-17. They had the worst rush defense in the National Football League. That's pretty wild.
And they had Peyton Manning, though.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. You got
Peyton Manning, Josh Allen. Yeah.
Yeah.
And a good running game themselves. I mean, as bad as we talk about, Buffalo's defense, 156 yards per game. 140 yards per game. They're number 2 in rushing the football at 156. So, Buffalo might say, they can run the football, which will keep their defense off the field, but they can also throw the football.
And didn't the Colts have Marshall Faulk that year?
Marshall Faulk?
They did.
Marshall Faulk. Didn't they have him that year when they won the Super Bowl that year?
I'm going to say that probably goes hand in hand.
Marshall Faulk. You were saying with Cook. The Bills have a really good rush offense. Well, maybe that could have been a year where the Colts had a really good complementary game as well, with the running game and the passing game. They're probably number 1 offense that year, I would guess, because if your rush defense is going to be that bad, you got to be spectacular in something else, as we talked about. And that's, I'm just guessing. I have to take a look at the stats for that team that year.
That'd be my guess as well.
Yeah. So, but again, that's just that's a good tip out there.
Falk did not play for the Colts in 2006. He played, I think, earlier for them, 1994 to 1998.
Okay.
I believe it was.
All right, guys, let's look at these some of the games in the National Football League card this particular weekend. Andy, anything that you caught that you thought raised an eyebrow or two, or anything that you think our listeners should be aware of going into this weekend?
I think a couple of games are interesting. The Seattle-San Francisco game is interesting because San Francisco was actually made a 1.5-point favorite in this game, and then the money came in very early on Seattle, so Seattle's now a 1.5-point favorite in most places. And of course, if you do a lot of the statistical handicapping, you can make the case that Seattle is the better football team based upon overall results. In fact, you take a look at their 3 losses, average of 3 points per game that they lost, which is pretty nice. I mean, they basically lost close games that could have been wins in those games, including one of them, I think, was a 4-point loss to San Francisco at home to start the season. So that's an intriguing matchup. And of course, with so much on the line, it brings together, two teams that are, by the way, we talk about teams that are San Francisco's 19th in defense as far as yards. They're 13th in defense as far as points go, but you're talking 7 and 8 as far as offense goes, and Seattle right up there number 5 in defense. So that's interesting. I can understand the move from the people who play, statistics, but you also wonder about experience and motivation in this game, and you would think that San Francisco, especially with everything San Francisco has overcome this year with injuries on both sides of the ball. You had Purdy out for a while. You had Kittle out. He's still uncertain for tomorrow night. And then, of course, Trent Williams out there as well. And then you take a look at the defense with Bosa out and Fred Warner out, who may now, they're saying, back in the NFC Championship game if things go right. So I find that game a very interesting handicap. As far as a point spread goes, Detroit and Chicago were playing. The game means nothing to Detroit other than, well, if they win the game, they finish 9 and 8. And you wonder how much, in fact, there are 2 games like that, Minnesota and Green Bay. If Minnesota, compared to where they were earlier this season, they're 8 and 8. And maybe they will be motivated to win 9 and 8, although they're in a similar situation to Detroit. Minnesota was 14 and 3 last year, and they're not in the playoffs. But Minnesota's known that they weren't going to be in the playoffs for a while. That's not the case with Detroit. They thought they were going to be in the playoffs, but they were 15 and 2 last year. So you have to wonder how motivated that team is going to be. And then you take a look at Chicago. How will they respond after that loss to San Francisco? I do not, and I don't know anybody who downgraded Chicago after that loss to San Francisco last week because of the way that game was played, those 5 times that the teams were tied. And you go back to the first meeting in week 2, 52-21, and Dan Campbell went up against his old coordinator and sort of rubbed it in with some of his play calling late in the game, where instead of just running the ball and taking a knee and things like that, they were aggressive on 4th down, etc. So I think Chicago might have a little bit of a motivational edge in this game, and that's maybe why I'm a little bit surprised that this line is only 3. Now, we know that Dan Campbell said, well, we're going to play every game, and every game that's one thing to say. It's another thing for the players to execute it. So I find the Detroit-Chicago game compelling as well.
Good points. Good case and points in both of those games: San Francisco, Seattle, Chicago, Detroit. Greg, what catches your attention this week in the NFL?
Just one thing before we get going. I want to Manuel brings up Edgerrin James. They actually, I was just checking it out right now. It's actually, they had Edgerrin James before they won their Super Bowl. They did have a 1,000-yard rusher the year they won that Super Bowl, but that was not Edgerrin James. That was actually, I think it was a Adai. What the hell's that guy's name?
Joseph Adai.
Joseph Adai. Yeah, he was the 1,000-yard rusher that year. As far as, yeah, I mean, there's actually a lot of intrigue this week. What I like about this week, and I understand exactly where you're coming from as far as you don't know who's playing. It's a really wide open type of situation. It's almost like bowl games, things like that. But I actually think there's some ways that you can definitely take advantage of this. Like when I take a look at some of these games, like for instance, like Tennessee and Jacksonville. All right, you got to give up 13 points. But as hot as Jacksonville is, and we're talking about a really bad Tennessee team, well, why do I have to be worried about giving up 13 points when all Jacksonville has to do, and they know it, win the game, you win the division, that's a big deal, and you might even be able to win number 1 seed. So I see no reason, I have no problem giving up 13 points in that situation. Then you take a look at another situation, like the Patriots and the Dolphins. It's a big number, but there's no way it's Chain's playing. They're not going to play him. He's banged up. He's a game time decision. Why would you play him? I mean, you could put him out there. He gets hurt and is going to disrupt his opportunity to play next year. That would be the dumbest thing in the world. So you would think New England is probably going to steamroll Miami with a chance also with the number 1 seed. I don't know why the Bills line is 7. I mean, Josh Allen's going to start. So you're telling me that even if he's only out there with the starters for 1 half, you're afraid of giving 7 against the Jets with Brady Cook at quarterback and all the injuries that they have? I mean, the Bills will steamroll the Jets. So I'm not even afraid of that. And Denver and the Chargers, that's 12. Okay, so what? The Chargers are resting everybody. So they've already given up. They don't want to. They don't care. So Denver's going to steamroll the Chargers. So I think there's a lot of games that I think will be blowouts. I think there's a lot of opportunity to take advantage of these lines, and that's what I'm interested in. Outside, of course, of the obvious big matchups that we'll get in.
I'm glad you mentioned that game, Greg, about the Jets and the Bills. The Jets have been outscored by 107 points. That's not for the season. That's for their last 4 games.
Yes.
I think they've lost like 24, 23, 32, and 28 or something like that.
Yeah.
And they only scored 46 points in those 4 games, and 11.5 points per game, and given up like 30 something on that. And you really have to wonder what the motivation. Oh, by the way, talk about motivation. If Buffalo's the number 1 seed, it's almost certain they cannot host a playoff game. If they were to end up with 6-5, unlikely but possible. This will be the last game at the stadium that they've called home for 53 years as they move across the street next year. So there's a little bit of motivation there to send the fans home.
And not just for that, and not just for that, Andy, but also because of the fact that, like you said, motivation, not just okay, want to say goodbye to the stadium. But let's keep in mind, there's a lot of fans that'll be watching, that have season tickets, that are going to be watching their Bills for the last time at home, that can't afford the new stadium. So this is a great way for the Bills to give back to those fans, those diehard fans that are not going to be able to watch these games anymore into new stadium. And that's why I think the Bills are going to come hard. Because, again, they still even have a chance to do something. They can still move up a little bit. This is not a game like the Packers, where the Packers don't have anything to play for. The Bills can move with their seeding, and that's why I'm very surprised the line's only 7.
And, well, actually, with this game opened 7 at the Westgate, when remember, there were no 10-day advance lines for Week 18. So the first lines we actually saw that you could bet, other than preseason numbers, which, 3 months ago, were the games Sunday afternoon. After these games were over, the late afternoon games before the Sunday night game, Bills were made 7-point favorites. And then there was some speculation that maybe they'll rest some starters and everything, and they're okay with the number 7 seed. That line closed Sunday night all the way up at 10. It moved further up to 14.5, and then started to come down when we didn't get any announcement about what was going to happen, and became more and more likely that Allen is going to play and some of the other guys are going to play as well. So that's part of that. The other thing is, and this may also be part of the reason why the line came down from the high of 14, which was sort of high to begin with. Maybe they thought that it wouldn't explain why the line would. It would explain why this would explain why the line went up, not why it came down. If they're the number seed, they most likely have to go to New England. I think they would rather go other than New England.
Oh, and Breece Hall may not even play. Keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Did you get the Playbook newsletter this week, Greg?
I did get it. Yes.
Okay. Well, I sent out 2 versions because the second version had a bet you didn't know column in there, which was incorrect. Where we replaced it with another, which comes to a 16-1 winning angle on the Buffalo Bills this week.
Oh.
And what it is any NFL team that's off back-to-back losses taking on a division opponent who's off a loss. If the team off back-to-back losses has dominated the other opponent and beat them 4 in a row of their last 4 games in the series, from game 12 on out, those teams are 16-1 against the spread. That's your Buffalo Bills.
All right. Another reason. There's all sorts of reasons.
Yep.
And the main one is the New York Jets are the opponent.
Yeah,
exactly right, Andy.
And keep this in mind because, again,
done.
There's a lot of morons out there who just, especially New York Jet moron fans, and that are wondering if Aaron Glenn should be fired. Just idiots. And here's the thing. The Jets were on a run, 5-1 against the spread, heading into their last 4 games. What happened in those last 4 games? Couple things. Number 1, Brady Cook became the starting quarterback of the New York Jets. An undrafted quarterback became their quarterback. Number 2, and maybe even just as important, they had the injuries on the defensive side. They are playing right now with, I think, 2 players that are starting in the secondary that were undrafted players that are not going to be a part of their defense next year. These are guys that should be on the practice squad. and are getting legitimate starting reps on the defensive side. So they have all, and don't forget also late in the season, who disappeared from their passing game? Garrett Wilson. So their number one receiver, they got an undrafted quarterback, and they got dummies playing on defense right now that have nothing to do with next year's team. And you wonder why the team is getting blown out in the last 4 games. And people are looking at Aaron Glenn as the problem. I mean,
keep in mind, and to your point, because we didn't mention it, the trading of Williams and Sauce at the trade deadline, which was maybe the halfway point of the season.
Sure.
They were not mathematically eliminated at that time, and we've seen teams go on late season run. Look at Philadelphia last year. I mean, it's a bad comparison considering Philadelphia was a good team when they went on that run, and they've been a good team for the years. But it basically told the players, we're giving up on the season. How do you hold that against the coach? And finally, the last 4 weeks, they were playing some teams that still cared about playing.
Yeah, so again, 7, I think this is a steal, honestly. So we'll see, but I'd be shocked. Look, Mitch Trubisky's the backup. Why is that a problem? He's a lot better than Brady Cook.
Yeah.
Well, he's a lot better than most backups, for sure.
Yeah.
Bills are up to 8.5 now at most. At many.
I think you should take that quick, because that line will probably jump to 10 by Sunday, because the more people realize Josh Allen's going to play.
And it's the last game at home and all that.
Yeah.
But he might play limited,
Yeah, I guess he plays a half. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah. I mean, he could come out after the first series, but I mean, I think he should play a half.
Yeah, they will be playing next week. So, I don't think you don't want to play him too much, but I don't think you want him to be totally rusty either.
Okay, guys, let me tear one other game down in front of you. We've got 2 teams that are both playing at home with the playoffs on the line this week. If they win, they're in. They lose, they're out. My question to you is, do they warrant being the favorites they are? The first is Tampa Bay hosting Carolina on Saturday. I believe Tampa's a 4-point favorite. And the other is Pittsburgh at home hosting Baltimore. And last I looked, Pittsburgh was a 3.5-point dog. Do you feel those lines are warranted, Andy?
Well, now that it's been announced that Lamar Jackson is going to start, I understand it. But, it's a series, and even though we talk about that it hasn't happened as frequently lately, the 2 teams don't know each other any better than Baltimore and Pittsburgh, with Tomlin and John Harbaugh coaching for almost close to 20 years each at their respective places. My normal, unless one of these teams is totally bad, if I can get more than 3 points, I'm taking the underdog. So I'm on the Pittsburgh Steelers in this game, even though I'm rooting for Baltimore to win because of some future situations. So I do deserve to be favored when you put Lamar Jackson in there, but at the same time, you're going up against Aaron Rodgers.
And what kind of Lamar Jackson are you putting in there? I mean, he's obviously
he says he's 100%. So who knows?
We haven't seen that all year. All year.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I've remarked to a few people that I thought that Lamar Jackson entered the season not 100%.
Yeah, he didn't even play a lot in the training camp. Let's rest him. He's not 100%. Keep this in mind. Baltimore is just 2-5 this year versus winning teams. Lamar Jackson is 0-3, including the loss to Pittsburgh. It's Tyler Huntley who's 2-3 against winning teams. So Lamar Jackson has yet to beat a winning team this season. And throw in the fact that, how about the dog in this series? The dog 8-0-2. I'm going to go back 10 because I was looking, of course, at the publication that you want to make sure you get for 2026 and beyond, the Marc Lawrence publication you see right here. So I go 8-0-2. The dog is ATS, the last 10 in Pittsburgh in this series. The dog has also won the last 4 in Pittsburgh in this series. So I think there's a lot that says that Pittsburgh is a good dog play here. And like you said, when you mentioned Aaron Rodgers' name, yes, there's no DK Metcalf, but, Aaron Rodgers is still, he's playing, he looks fine. And I think he's going to play as good as a game as I think he can. It's just amazing that if Pittsburgh winds up losing this game and getting knocked out, that a big deal of that will come because of DK Metcalf's stupidity. So And now TJ Watt, there is talk that it looks like right now, I think the word is it's favoring that he's going to play. But that's something that is not 100%. And that would be a major, major deal in this game if TJ Watt plays or not.
Yeah, but
as far Mark, yes, about Tampa Bay, Carolina.
Yes.
Tampa Bay, what have they lost? They've lost 4 in a row, I believe. They still have the best point differential in the division at minus 33. Carolina is actually second worst in the division. New Orleans is worst at minus 75, and that's been improving because of the way the Saints have played over the last month. They're minus 67. Now, Tampa Bay, can you really trust them at home here? This is another situation where, and by the way, Tampa Bay with a win doesn't guarantee anything because if Atlanta beats New Orleans, Tampa Bay Carolina would get in because of winning the three-way tiebreaker between 3 teams that would be each 8 and 9. So a Tampa Bay win does not guarantee anything. And the way the Atlanta Falcons are playing, some people say it may be a letdown after beating the Rams last week. And yeah, if this were week 14, it might be. This is week 18. They have a chance, even though they've been eliminated from the playoffs. They would be tri-champions of the division at 8 and 9, losing out on tiebreakers. So that's a little bit of incentive there for Atlanta, the way they're playing. As far as Carolina, Tampa Bay, though, I'm looking at taking. Well, I did take, but I would still be taking it if the line was still 3. It's down to 2.5. I got 3.5 on Carolina. I can see them winning this game.
Yeah, how could anybody? I mean, I'd really like to analyze somebody's decision to take Tampa in the spot. I mean, they are just playing so bad. And look, they're not getting blown out, but they just can't win football games. They have no confidence whatsoever. Every time something bad happens, they let it affect them for like 2 quarters before they get back into it. Baker Mayfield again, we know he's not 100%. And that's a major problem because the offense has been relatively healthy. Yes, Wirfs didn't play last week, but still. I mean, that should be no excuse for the way that this team has played lately. And then Carolina's got that alternate 1-loss thing happening now for the last 10 games. And this is a perfect spot for them. Just keep that trend going and you win the game.
And they win and they're in. And they're in.
Automatic.
Doesn't matter what happens with New England North. By the way, one other thing about the Buccaneers. They are this late season's Kansas City Chiefs. Throughout the 3 months of the season before they were eliminated, everyone said, this is the week Kansas City turns it on. This is the thing they turn it around and win. Well, how many times do you have to keep going with Kansas City laying points and have them lose the game outright? You're doing the same thing with Tampa Bay the last month or so.
Last 5 games in a row, Tampa's lost. They've been favored in all 5 games.
There you go.
And maybe they win this week, but from a betting standpoint, Tampa Bay's in the same situation they've been in for the last 5 weeks.
Yeah.
Maybe they win this game. Maybe they win it comfortably. But for me, I feel more comfortable with Carolina right now.
And if you want to, don't forget to get we have a link in the description of this video for the daily coffee club emails. And part of the reason, just a minor part, that you want to make sure you subscribe to the email. There was this trend. I believe this was in today's edition, Mark, the one with the Bucks being 3-15-1 against the spread on Saturdays since 1982, 0-7 against the spread in division games. Wow. I mean, those are those types of historical trends that just very weird how something like that can happen to one franchise.
Yeah, and people say to me, well, why? Why are they that? Because it is a team trend. It's not a system or a league-wide angle. But do you want to use Tampa Bay knowing those numbers when you go to the window? I don't think so.
Especially the way they're playing.
Yeah, on top of it.
Yes.
At the best, I would stay out of the game.
I have a question, Mark, and maybe you know the answer, because the question that naturally comes up to mind is, okay, maybe it's preparation or something on 6 days rest after playing on Sunday. I'd like to know over the period, what is Tampa Bay's record when they play on a Thursday night when not coming out off a bye? Because then they have even less time to prepare.
Yes, they do.
So I wonder, if this record on Saturdays is more due to lack of preparation time. And if we find out that Tampa Bay on Thursday nights is, 3-14 over the last 10 years, maybe that offers additional support or explanation
No,
why
there
they're also
is.
bad on Saturdays.
No, yeah, Tampa Bay, let's see, on Thursdays, 0-7 against the spread at home on Thursdays, 0-8 now after the Atlanta loss.
Okay, I wonder if that's following a bye or not, but even so, there's still going to be, there'll be extra rest if it wasn't following a bye, but, maybe it's still significant.
And Trend Tacklers wants to throw a really good trend here into the mix. Move over Dan Campbell. Dave Canales is 12-1 against the spread in his last 13 following a loss.
Oh, that's a nice trend.
And this is only his second year, correct?
That is correct.
Where was he? He was with Seattle before that as offensive coordinator?
He was the Tampa Bay offensive coordinator.
Tampa Bay, okay, yeah.
Now that's a type of a trend that I'll look at because it's a coaching trend, and the team reflects the coach's personality.
And by the way, he's going up against a team then that he was offensive coordinator for before getting the job in Carolina. So he still knows a lot of the personnel.
And another team with a second-year head coach with a big trend is the Seattle-San Francisco game. So McDonald is 14-2 straight up on the road. 14-2. Yeah. So and the road
my
team
numbers, when I do my power ratings, I actually have Seattle with a negative home field advantage despite the 12th man because they actually have performed better on the road than they have at home.
And the road team in this series has won 5 out of 6 and covered 6 straight. This is the regular season only. But San Francisco has beaten Seattle 7 of the last 8 times they played, including week 1 when they beat Seattle as a 1-point road favorite. So they said this actually might be the
12 or something.
17-13. And this one might be the one that affects the weather the most out of all the games this weekend because it's supposed to rain in San Francisco tomorrow night. So keep that in mind. I think most of the rest of the games, I don't see any weather difficulties. That's something to watch. Injury-wise, Charles Cross looks like he's out once again. He's missed the last 2 games, the left tackle for Seattle. And their backup, Josh Jones, has been banged up, meaning if something happens and he gets hurt, Seattle will have an undrafted rookie left tackle playing in this game, the blind side for Darnold. So that's something to keep in mind. And Trent Williams is dealing with a hamstring too, but Trent Williams just always seems to play no matter how banged up he is.
Ask these teams this week, who reaps the biggest reward for winning? And my answer would be San Francisco, because every game they would play moving forward would be all at home, including the Super Bowl. They wouldn't have to leave their house.
And Seattle doesn't worry about the road.
I would counter that with Denver, who would be in the same situation, hosting everything for as long as last, but also with that mile-high altitude advantage in cold weather, especially.
Yeah, getting the number 1 seed for sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then in the South, we know that Jacksonville could take care of business with the win. They win, but if they get upset by Tennessee and Houston wins, then Houston wins the division. And Houston has won 8 straight. They covered 6 out of 8. Jacksonville has won 7 straight up and against the spread, with 5 of them by 14 or more points. Keep in mind, though, Houston is just 1-8 against the spread in their last 9 as a home favorite of 8 or more. And matchup-wise, and this is important because you were talking about this, Andy. So Houston, they will get either Pittsburgh or Baltimore on the road if they finish in second, and it looks like Jacksonville most likely will host Buffalo as the AFC South champion. So what kind of a bonus is that? If you're Jacksonville, you get to play, you win the division and you get Buffalo at home, and Houston's in second place and they get to go on the road and take on either Pittsburgh or Baltimore.
Andy, what line do you make Buffalo at Jacksonville?
It's an interesting line. I hadn't thought about that. Because I think you would normally make, it would be next week, so we won't have much to go on.
Right.
I would probably I'd still make Buffalo the favorite, but I might make it under 2, maybe 1.5. And I'll tell you why, because I'm just taking a look at this right now. Right now in the NFL, who is playing, with the exception of Houston, Who's playing better than Jacksonville right now?
Nobody.
I can't think. No. Jacksonville at the Westgate right now, and if you think that they could be a team, and their defense has played outstanding as well as the offense has been playing well, for much of the year with Trevor Lawrence showing why he was the #1 draft pick after finally getting some good coaching. At the Superbook right now, Jaguars are 14-1 to win the Super Bowl. I think those are relatively good odds, but if you're going to bet it, certainly if you're in Vegas or even if you're elsewhere and you got to bet online and maybe get 12-1 or something, you want to bet it now because they have not yet officially clinched the division. Once they clinch on Sunday, those odds probably go down. And that's another thing, by the way. If you haven't made a futures bet and there's some teams that you like and maybe you don't feel comfortable right now, wait until we know the field of 14 teams and what the bracket looks like, because you might find some teams that are pretty good, but because of their road to the Super Bowl, might have more attractive odds than they do right now.
Yeah, you'll get better value. Exactly right.
Yeah, well, I'm not so sure that line would drop or maybe should drop if, again, what if they end up playing Buffalo at home in their first game? That means Jacksonville would have to beat Buffalo at home. Then they'd probably have to beat New England maybe, and then have to beat potentially Denver before they even get to the Super Bowl.
On the road,
Those odds might stay the same. It's possible.
Well, for what it's worth, guys, in our Playbook newsletter, Kenny White in Vegas supplies us with all the power ratings. And when you look at his power ratings and you apply them, they're almost always dead spot on. I mean, they're within a point and a half of what the line actually comes. And his line on Buffalo at Jacksonville would be Buffalo -0.5.
Wow.
Okay, I was close.
Yep. Yes, you were. Andy.
I was close on that one.
Nice. Yes.
Keep in mind for the Buffalo home game, and I think this is great that they're doing this. They're going to be using their 90s Super Bowl era uniforms, throwback uniforms.
Just don't use it for the 4 years they were in the Super Bowl.
Wide left, you mean?
That's the uniforms they're using.
It's their Super Bowl years.
They have not used it yet. It's the first. They've used other throwbacks. They're going to be the first time they're using those throwback uniforms.
Well, call them the wide left uniforms. That's what they are. Right?
Yeah. So
wide right wasn't a wide right?
I thought it was wide left, but
yeah,
it was wide. That's all we know.
In the Denver Charger game, keep in mind that, again, as I said, lots of Chargers that are not going to play. It looks like a lot of their secondary players, including Derwin James, most likely not going to play. In the Philly game, this is going to be important for any team like the New York Jets, because this is the guy I've been saying that I want the Jets to sign or trade for in the offseason. But Philadelphia is going to be starting their backup quarterback, and this is the kid. Yes, and this is the kid that I think any NFL team that needs a starting quarterback that is I can't imagine. I don't know what the Eagles are asking for, but even if they ask, let's say the Jets have all these first-round draft picks. Even if they have all these first-round draft picks, I'd give them the Colts first-round draft pick, or I'd give them next year's. You need a quarterback. So what do I care if you're giving up a first-round draft pick? Give the first-round draft pick away. The Eagles have to say yes, and then you finally get yourself I'd rather have a quarterback that's young and that's been in the league for the last couple of years, that is ready as soon as he puts that uniform on in 2026 to come out of the gates just like a regular starter, a professional veteran. Not where you have to wait 2 or 3 years for a rookie. So any NFL team that's looking for a starting quarterback, and we know there's tons of teams looking for NFL starting quarterbacks, keep an eye on Tanner McKee in this game, which is a reason why I also like this game. It's only 4 points, and I think Tanner McKee going up against 39-year-old Josh Johnson is a better bet.
If you remember last year, Philadelphia sat all their starters, including Barkley, who could have gone for the record, and they were 2.5-point favorites or 3-point favorites over the Giants, also at home, and they beat the Giants. I want to say something like 20-13, covering that number despite sitting everybody. This game is really no different.
Yeah.
I said that I like Chicago, but they can certainly lose to Detroit if Detroit comes to play. So the Eagles could have a chance to get that number 2 seed. I believe that would happen, Mark, if I'm correct, if the Bears lose to the Lions and the Eagles beat the Commanders.
I got to say this, guys. Trend Tacklers, who's a real big advocate of our show, and he does some great work. He comes up with some nice stats, not just trends, but good, deep stats. And he calls out the point that John Harbaugh is 2-12-2 against the spread as a favorite of 3 or more against Pittsburgh, which ties perfectly into the trend about how many there have been 28 games in that series that have been decided by 3 points or less of the last 58 that have played. So last 98 that have been played. Good trend by the Trend Tacklers there. John Harbaugh, horrible, laying 3 or more in division games.
He's also now, his legacy, while it's still really, really good, he's got a Super Bowl win. It's taken a hit the last few years with all those double-digit leads that his team has given up, and a lot of it has to do with his refusal to play Derrick Henry in the latter stages of games. When we were hearing all last year about how Derrick Henry is so much better in the fourth quarter than he is the first quarter, which goes against, it's counterintuitive, but that's the way he's built. That's the way he performs. And then he did it so much this year, and then all of a sudden he realized last week that, hey, Derrick Henry is eligible to play the fourth quarter. He ended up running for 216 yards in the game last week against
and with more carries than he's ever had in his career, Andy, can he do that back-to-back weeks? Will the legs hold up? That's the question.
The only thought there is maybe Harbaugh's smarter than us all, and he saved him for the last 2 weeks of the season so that he could carry that load.
That could
maybe, and that's the same thing with Philadelphia and their much more limited use of Barkley after all the use he had last year. Save him for the games save him for December and January. maybe that's all part of a plan. I don't know.
I don't know about that.
I wouldn't be surprised.
They wouldn't even be in this spot if Pittsburgh had just beaten Cleveland.
Yeah.
So the other thing too is with the Chicago game, and because you do wonder about, what they need to do. Do they care about a 2 or 3 seed? Well, they are playing a division opponent who destroyed them earlier in the season. So I think Chicago's good. There's been no word that they're resting anybody. I haven't heard anything like that. So I think Chicago, the way Detroit's playing, we saw what they did last week with Minnesota. I think it's over for them. They're going to rest a lot of players.
And Goff does not play well in the cold.
Why would you play Amon St. Brown in this game? He's banged up. There's no reason to risk him. You've got a bunch of offensive linemen banged up. Why would you do that and risk that? And then you know what that means? We'd get a really good first-round matchup between the Packers at the Bears. Yeah. So that would be a really nice rematch, especially because it looks like, Jordan Love will be back, Jacobs will be back, Watson will be back. So we'll get a really good matchup. If that happens,
even Willis might be back if Love isn't cleared or has 100%.
Yeah, but Love is. But yeah, I mean, Love will have what? That'll be the 3rd week off, so he should be fine. I mean, nobody said that he's got a really bad concussion, and then the Rams in San Francisco. Of course, this is important because the Eagles are in a situation where if they sit at number 3, they're going to host either the Seattle San Francisco loser or the Rams.
Right.
So that Ram game,
Green Bay's locked into number 7.
Yes. And that Ram game, now this is important if Seattle wins, all right? Because if the Rams win and Seattle wins, okay, that means that they're going to get the 5 seed. And that means they get to play the NFC South team. All right. But if Seattle loses, that's different. They don't get, because Seattle gets the 5 seed, the Rams stay at 6. So remember that when you're watching before that Ram game, if Seattle wins and LA knows that if they beat Arizona, they get to play the NFC South team, that they're going to want to win that football game. So,
hey guys, I just got the word from the housekeeper. It's time to turn off the lights.
Yeah, we're pretty much done. I think we've given everything out.
Yeah, we are pretty much done. A great show once again. I want to also extend a courtesy to Jim Feist, who couldn't join us this week. Jim, we're looking forward to talking with you again next week. We hope everything's well. You're staying safe and staying healthy. For Andy Iskoe from TheLogicalApproach.com in Las Vegas, Greg DePalma from Prime Sports Network, this is Marc Lawrence reminding you to always remember to bet with your head, not over it, and good luck as always.